Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Adi. I'm a lead machine learning engineer at Machinify. We are a healthcare startup here in the Bay Area. I won't talk much about the company, but I'm going to talk today about something that's going to affect each and every one of us here in the room, which is going to be the cost of healthcare. Who among us here is bullish that healthcare is going to reduce our overall health costs? By show of hands. Nope. Who is bullish that healthcare, AI is going to reduce our overall healthcare costs? Yeah? I see a few hands up, but like not that many. Another quick question for the crowd. For every dollar that we spend currently in the US on healthcare, what percentage of it do you think is admin costs? And by admin costs, I mean stuff that you pay to your insurance for the salaries and stuff. 40%? That's pretty close, actually. So it's roughly around 30%, right? Think of that. Think of the credit card industry. It's less than 2% admin cost for every transaction you make. 30% in healthcare is insane. And our goal is to bring that down. And one of the ways that we are going to bring that down, or we're currently working on bringing it down, is auto approval of claims. Okay? The working keyword here is approval, not denial. Yes. Please
I
don't
think you said auto denial of claims. Okay, auto approval. Well, just to let you know.
Yeah.
Slides are up, so you should be able to see it.
Sweet. Yeah, perfect.
Is forward.
Gotcha.
And it's you don't have any media in it, right?
No. It's just slides. It's just going to be me talking on slides. Yeah. So yeah, it's approval, not denial. So please don't shoot me out on the street. That seems to be a popular thing these days. So I'm going to start off with, what does a typical healthcare episode look like? You know, you go to a doctor, say you go in with a headache. The doctor checks your temperature. They might do some blood work. They might run a test and say, okay, you have the flu, you have a bit of fever. I'm going to prescribe these medications. Your temperature is a bit high, so we want to keep you under observation, so stay overnight. Okay? This is an episode. You go home the next day. What your doctor does, or what your health system does on their side, is they draft all of this into a medical record to say, these are the services I provided, this is the bill, reimburse me for it. And then, on your insurance side, which is phase 2, some human, typically a nurse or an MD, depending on the type of claim. Again, I'm oversimplifying this, so don't hold me to it. They look at the medical record and run a checklist of items to look for evidence. So a simple example would be, let's say you went in for say the doctor prescribed a hip replacement. A hip replacement is a procedure that typically costs upwards of $10,000. So there are policies or certain evidence that you have to prove that you need this treatment. Things like, did you have conservative therapy for the last 6 months? Are you at least 40 years of age? And things like that. So someone goes to the medical record, checks each one of these questions or queries and says, okay, we have evidence for this, now approve this claim. Or we don't find evidence for this, request for evidence. Okay? So this is how it typically works, and the life cycle of a claim can be anywhere between, or the approval time for this can be anywhere between 2 weeks to 3 months, which is extremely inefficient because a lot of times it's not a straightforward checklist of questions. There's government regulations, and it's like a giant maze or we call it a decision tree, but it's like, if this, then that, if not this, then go through this path. Otherwise, there's exceptions for this rule, things like that. And I'm sure, if any one of you all have actually been on a call with your provider, you know what I'm talking about. It's pretty complicated. So how complex are these questions? So is it as simple as saying, did you administer a shot of adrenaline to the patient? Or is it something as simple as, do you have evidence for the diagnosis of sepsis by a physician? It's pretty straightforward. It's one line. And if, as you may know, AI is pretty good at just like retrieving simple information and then, giving you a well-reasoned answer. But a lot of the questions are pretty complicated. Like, if you look at the wall of text on the screen, it can be something like, did you administer some antibiotic treatment within 4 hours of admission? And was this choice of antibiotic appropriate for the patient's age and comorbidities? So let me just unpack that for you. You need to determine from the medical record, which could be, by the way, hundreds of pages long, what was the accurate time of admission, what is the age of the patient, and what were the comorbidities, which may not be in the medical record, by the way. Like, so if they have something that's from like a previous visit, it may not be documented, but may be required for approval of a claim. So it's a pretty complicated question to ask. Like, and the way it works is that a human, an MD or a nurse on the insurance side, literally, skims through hundreds of pages of this evidence, writes down notes, and says, this is my reasoning for why I'm approving this claim. Where we come in and is we say, AI can do this. We do not need expensive, we don't need 7 different people to touch this and, rack up the administrative costs. This one's actually my favorite. Like, this was actually for, I think this one is from the hip replacement policy. But basically, it sends you on a goose chase to collect evidence for like 3 months. And that's, you to go through like previous medical records for the patient across different medical systems. And if you know anything about the healthcare system, it's very, very averse to change. So a lot of these medical records aren't well formatted. In fact, a vast majority of them are still faxed, but that's for HIPAA regulations. But what I'm saying is that this data is not available in like a very clean and easy to use form. So how do we handle this complexity? So at Machinify, what we do is, or what my team does is, we basically take like a policy agnostic or a question agnostic view of the record and try to structure it in terms of, hey, who wrote this document? Was it an MD? Was it a nurse? What was the specialization? When did they document this? What kind of document it is? For some of us who have experience, in the healthcare domain, you might be familiar with the term like a progress note or a discharge summary or history and physical note. Those are like specific regions in like a large haystack, the colloquial needle in the large haystack that you need to pick out for specific evidence. So we use, so the part one of our product is to just index them, so that we create kind of like a graph, like a structured graph that says, this is the timeline, this is the evidence, this is who wrote it, this is who documented it, and yeah. And then the next step is, from this semi-structured bit of information, how can I find the relevant piece that says, this was conservative physical therapy in the context of some hip pain? So we have, I won't get into the technical details in the interest of time. Happy to chat about the engineering details, afterwards. I'll just take a quick pause here and just jump directly to how does it do in the real world, because that's what we actually care about. We don't care about the hows. We care about what's the impact. So we're currently working with the top 5 biggest health insurance companies in the US. And there's a bunch of KPIs. Like the biggest one that I want to talk about is 75% reduction in provider appeals. What that means is, it's not just a cost-saving measure for the health insurance company, it also makes the providers happy. Because I don't know if you know this, but most hospital systems, like at least small clinics, work on very thin margins. And doctors do not have the bandwidth to sit and write and document evidence for United, only for them to come back and say, hey, you missed this. You're not going to get paid. Because they have to make payroll as well. So, I'm going to pause there, because I'm at time. I'm Adi. Happy to chat further during our networking session. And thank you for your time.
Well, it looks like we have questions. We have burning questions. Let me run the mic over here. We had somebody jump out of their seats to ask a question. So come this way. Let me give you the mic real quick.
Yeah, can you stay where I am? So I've worked in this space a little bit and have taken a look at the clinical protocols for approval, right? And there's a lot of complex logic in there, and I'm wondering how you handle that. Also, since every contract that an insurance company has in every state based on line of business, you know, this really well-oiled spaghetti, this real mess of contracts and what goes in every year is changing. I appreciate your statement about being agnostic, taking an agnostic point of view. And at what point do you hook up to those specific clinical protocols? And do you have the opportunity to influence them? That's my big question.
That's a great question, and there's a lot to unpack there. So I'll try to be as concise as possible. First off, I would disagree that it's well-oiled. It's a mess. It's like a lot of these health insurance companies. Yeah. They do not know half of the contracts that that they have with individual health systems and stuff like that. But to answer your question on the complexity of these policies, what we try to do is we have an in-house team of clinical experts, including MDs and nurses, who craft these policies for us, and they work with our customers to say, hey, this is the policy for sepsis. Does this make sense to you? Your policy is it's inconsistent, it doesn't make sense, and you're going to run into a lot of trouble. We are going to simplify it for you, and this is how we define it. So that's one of the ways we do it. For things like, say, prior authorizations, it's defined by the government. So or by some regulation in most cases. So there's not much wiggle room there. But we're not just like an engineering only org. Like we have a vast team of SMEs who help us craft this logic. Yeah.
All right, great. One last question here, because we really do have to move on.
I'm curious in terms of your customer, you've talked about working with insurance industries, but have you also thought about working directly with manufacturers, pharmaceutical companies, et cetera?
Yeah, that's the next logical step. So the way we work is we work with the payers, because that's where we find the maximum inefficiency. And then a lot of these payers are vertically integrated. Like they do work with manufacturers themselves. But that is a long-term path. I don't have much to say on that as of right now.
Adi, thank you. Big hand for Adi.